Good morning, everyone. So today I am a little bit hurting and sore. Been doing basketball camp all week, last week and this week, so 5 hours a day on the court. Just a little bit sore, knees, hips, low back. So today we're going to get into gait mechanics, 3D, kind of our half kneeling work to work on loosening up the hips, getting into that low back, and getting some glute activation at the very end. So let's get started. So we're going to start with our crocodile breath in the standing position, making nice big C shapes with our hands. Thumbs are going into that low back musculature. Index fingers are wrapping around the front. Palms are pressing into the side. Hands are below the rib cage and above the hip bone in that nice meaty section of the abdominal wall. We're going to take nice inhales in through the nose, exhales out through the mouth. And as we exhale, feel that navel drawing up and in to the spine. And with each inhale, I want to imagine that we're inflating that abdominal wall like a balloon, and we're trying to see how big can we slowly get that balloon to inflate. A little bit bigger with each inhale breath. And we'll go a good 5 to 8 breaths. I want it to be nice and slow on the inhale, so it could be a 5 to 8 second count inhale, as well as a 5 to 8 second count on the exhale. As you get into that breath, I want to start to feel symmetry or lack of symmetry. How does that breath expand to the right side of the body compared to the left side of the body, especially in that low back space where your thumbs are at, or in the side body where you're pressing in? Does one side move a little bit more and the other side is harder to feel that activation in that space? Does it not expand as much to let that breath in? If you're noticing that, then you can add a little bit of a kinesthetic cue using that thumb to kind of press or lightly just stroke in order to give your body an awareness to bring that breath into that space. See if you can get it to move a little bit more. Once we get to 6 to 8 breaths, we're going to pick up our staff. I want to continue with that breath. We're going to continue inhale, exhale, using that crocodile breath. We're going to get a nice shoulder width grip on the staff. I want to imagine that we're bending or breaking that staff in two. And I want to feel that bend happening at the wrist, elbow, and shoulder blades. So wrists, we're trying to break the staff in two. Elbows should be spiraling up towards the ceiling. Shoulder blades are packing down towards our hips. Feel that downward pressure of the shoulder blades. As we get into that breath, the staff will be at the front of our hips. Getting back into that crocodile breath. Inhale, feel that inflation of the abdominal wall. We're going to start to allow that pelvis to tilt with our breath. As we inhale, pelvis is going to tilt forward, belly's opening up in front, getting a little bit of sway in our low back. Exhale, drawing that navel up and in. Now, since I have some low back stiffness, as I'm inhaling, moving anterior, I feel a little bit of tightness and tension in that low back. It's not going as far as it normally does. Exhale, scoop. I'm getting a nice stretch. I want to stay light and juicy. I don't want to force it, but I do want to move into that stretch. I want to be kind of, not pushing, not taking it to pain, but just slowly encouraging it to move a little bit more. You can think of this as just kind of getting some synovial fluid coating through the joints of the vertebrae. With each one, I'm seeing if I can get a little bit more tilt in each direction, which I'm starting to feel that low back loosen up just a little bit. On our next inhale, as we open, when we exhale, drawing that navel in, I want to feel that core engage. And then we're also going to start to bring those elbows up towards the ears, feeling into that tension in the shoulders. As we exhale, inhale, we're letting those arms back forward, belly opens up, pelvis tilts forward. Exhale, actively scoop. Feel that core lock in as you pull elbows towards the ears. And with each one, I want to squeeze into that end range a little slowly, softly, but seeing if I can get a little bit more draw back in those arms. And I want to do so without losing my rib. So as my arms come forward, pelvis tilts forward, that rib sticks out. But as I exhale and I'm scooping, the rib should be dropping down. And I want to maintain that drop down rib as I pull elbows back. I want to avoid that rib sticking out, arching the back as we're pulling. We're not going to get quite as much shoulder mobility, and that will be getting more mobility into that mid back, which is not where I necessarily want to get it. I want to have core braced, under control, and then squeezing into that shoulder range. Notice, how does the right shoulder feel compared to the left shoulder? We'll go ahead and let the arms drop down. We're going to bring the staff to behind the body, palms facing backwards. I still want to bend or break the staff, but I'm bending it and breaking it away from the body. So still feeling that at the wrists. Elbow pits are still spiraling forward. And as those elbow pits spiral forward, shoulder blades round down and back, and the chest opens up to the front. Taking a nice inhale into that crocodile breath, exhale, draw navel into spine, and slowly lift elbows up towards the ceiling. Inhale as we let it soften, crocodile breath, exhale, nice lift and slow squeeze. As you lift, continue to try to bend or break the staff. The more we get that spiral of trying to break that staff, you should feel the chest continue to open up and expand in the front. Once you get about 10 reps, we're going to flip the palms to the opposite direction. So the palms are now facing forwards, still bending the staff away from the body. Nice inhale into that crocodile breath. Exhale as we draw the navel into the spine and lift and squeeze. Basically doing the exact same movement, just with the palms in the opposite direction on the staff, continuing to feel that spiral, elbow pit spiraling out and away as you lift. Feel that opening up stretch through the chest, front of the chest. Each one trying to squeeze a little bit more range in that top end range place. Once we get good 10 reps, I'm going to go ahead and set the staff down to the side, and we're going to come down to the floor, getting onto hands and knees. Going to spread the fingers nice and wide, grounding palms, extending elbows. Want to tuck the toes in the back. We're going to do some light foot mobility from here. Inhale into our crocodile breath. Exhale, drawing navel into spine. On our next inhale, we'll lightly rock forward. We can get a little bit of load into our wrists. Exhale, Let the hips sink back into the heels, specifically loading into that big toe joint. I want to feel the big toes get a little bit of a stretch, arch of the foot get a little bit of a stretch. Inhale brings us forward. Again, we can lightly load into the wrists. Exhale, let those hips slowly sink to the heels. Now, as I'm getting into these, I'm feeling my right knee is a little stiffer, there's some swelling in it. So my range of motion today is a little bit less than it was yesterday. Again, that's from hours on the basketball court, so that's expected. I'm also feeling a lot more tension in my toes, especially the big toes, and more so on my left foot. So I want to go nice and slow and see if I can slowly encourage a little bit more mobility in the feet. On the next one, we're going to roll the heels out and see if we can get the toes tucked underneath all the way out to the pinky toes. Everything else will be the same. Inhale, going forward into the wrists. Exhale, feel the hips sink between the heels. Notice how does that feel to that lateral edge of the foot, all the way out to the pinky toe and lateral arch of the foot. Is one side tighter, more restricted than the other? This feels pretty good at the level of my feet, but again, I'm feeling a little bit more tension in my knee, and very specifically kind of in the medial compartment of my knee, my right knee specifically. We'll come back to our starting point. Again, nice spread hands, grounded palms, toes are tucked, and we're going to get back into our crocodile breath. Nice inhale into that abdominal wall, filling it up like a balloon. Exhale, drawing the navel up and into the spine. As we draw that navel in, we should naturally get a little bit of a scoop in our pelvis. Inhale, allow that pelvis to tilt forward. We're going to come back to those tilts. Get a little bit of a sway in the low back. Allow the belly to open up in the front. Exhale, draw that navel in as you scoop. Oh, and I'm feeling that low back again. So I want to spend a little bit of extra time here. We're going to get a nice slow 10 reps of just pelvic tilts. Each one just moving lightly into that tension. I do not want to try to force it. Definitely don't want to be moving into pinch, pain, or any kind of stressful position. And this feels good and juicy. It's not painful. And with each one, I'm finding that I'm getting a little bit more range. Get a little bit more scoop. I get a little bit more tilt forward. As we're feeling it kind of loosen up and open up, we can now start to move, let that movement go further up the spine. So as I scoop, I'm going to continue to scoop, and I want to feel it kind of move up into that mid back area. Inhale, same thing. As I come forward, I'm allowing that drop of the belly to kind of move a little bit higher. Feel the chest start to reach to the floor. Exhale as we scoop, scoop even higher. Start to get up into the shoulders. As you get up, start to press through the floor. See if you can feel some of that stretch between the shoulder blades and the spine. And then again, inhale as we let it drop. Feel that sternum start to reach towards the floor. And then last, as we continue to scoop, reach through the floor, feel that stretch between the shoulders, and then we'll let it come across the top of the head, where we're going to try to touch our tailbone and our forehead at this imaginary point right here in the middle. Inhale, feel that wave moving up the spine, and the head comes up last. Feel that sternum dropping to the floor. Again, the slower, the better. I want to see if I can feel each individual segment of my vertebrae move one at a time from my tailbone all the way up to my head in both directions. Really, the slower, the better on this, especially if you're feeling tightness and tension, low back soreness. Good. We'll come back to our starting point. Now we're going to walk our hands out just a little bit, keeping those hands nice and spread. So I want to have nice downward pressure through the hands. I want to actively be pushing into the floor. Elbows are actively straight. Don't let them get bendy. From here, we're going to continue with our breath and tilts. Inhale, pelvis tilts down, belly opens up. Exhale, scoop. Notice, how does that low back tension feel with those arms braced a little bit more over the head? Is there still tightness and tension there? Can we move into it, getting it to open up a little bit more? And as you exhale and scoop, can you start to feel that core bracing again, similar to what we had when we were working with the staff? Kind of feeling that rib drop down as we scoop, and then the core is engaged. If you're feeling that, then we can, on our next exhale, as we get that scoop and that core to brace, we're now going to reach our sternum down to the floor. Again, shoulders are actively pressing down. Elbows are straight. Inhale, coming up. Allow that belly to open up. Allow the pelvis to tilt forward. Exhale, scoop. Feel the core lock on and engage, and maintain that engagement as you reach the sternum down, so that we can start to feel that stretch into the shoulders. And I want to stay light and juicy with this, not forceful and stressful, not moving into pain. But I do want to pay attention to, how does this feel on the right side, right shoulder compared to the left shoulder? Good. We'll come off the hands for a moment, roll the wrists out, let them have a little bit of a break. And we're going to come up back to our hands and knees. Again, spreading hands nice and wide, grounding palms, elbows are extended. We're now going to lift the knees off the floor. And I want to keep the knees bent. And we're going to try to drop that chest down, keep that downward pressure, kind of getting into that same position with our shoulders, just with our knees off the ground and our knees bent. From here, we're going to do some gas pedal to work along that back line of the leg. So I'm actively reaching the right heel to the floor, actively straightening that knee, like I'm reaching the knee back to the wall behind me. Inhale as we let it bend and soften. Exhale as we go to the other side. Feel that heel reaching to the floor, knee is actively straightening, trying to press back to the wall behind us. Doing a little gas pedal. Notice, how does this feel on the left leg compared to the right leg? Is one side a little tighter, a little stiffer? Do you have less mobility? I'm not necessarily trying to touch the heels to the floor. If they touch the floor, great. If they don't, it's not a big deal. However, I do want to notice, does one heel go lower to the floor than the other? Does one knee get straighter than the other, and the other one's harder to get straight because it feels tight? And is that tightness more in the calf? Is it more behind the knee, or is it up higher in the hamstring, upper part of the leg? We'll go ahead and bring our knees back down to the floor. And now we're going to get into our half kneeling position. So if you have sensitive knees, where being in this half kneeling position becomes painful on the knees, then you can do these same movements from a chair, really all of them except for one, which is when I do our forward lunge. So I don't want to stress out the knees. I don't want to be put into a stressful position with them. In half kneeling, back toe is tucked underneath and loaded into that big toe. I want the knee placed directly under the hip. Hip is directly under the shoulder, and the shoulder is directly under the head. I'm going to start on the other sides. We're going to start coming back into that breath and pelvic tilts, but we're just working one pelvis. We're working the hip of the knee that is down on the floor. So again, that back toe is tucked so that we're kind of loaded into it. Nice inhale into that crocodile breath. Allow that pelvis to tilt forward, getting a sway in our low back. Exhale, drawing that navel up and in as we scoop. If your sacrum is the palm of your hand, your fingers at the bottom are your tailbone. And I want to imagine we're reaching those fingers forward. We're scooping into it. I want to feel that stretch through the front of the thigh. Inhale, we're unscooping. Again, feeling into that low back, stiffness, tightness. Exhale, navel comes in as we actively scoop. I want to also feel that load into the big toe, into the foot. As we scoop, we should feel that foot kind of digging in just a little bit. And with each one, I really want to squeeze that anterior, that scoop a little bit more. The more I scoop, the more we should feel that contraction in the glute. I want to feel the glute tightening up, getting contracting with this stretch that is in the front. And the more we can move into the stretch, the more we can get that contraction. And the more we can get that contraction, the more we can move into that stretch. Again, I don't want to be forceful, but I do want to feel that glute engagement as much as possible. Once we've done 10 nice slow reps, we're going to switch feet and go to the other side. Right off the bat in this position, I can feel my left big toe a little bit stiffer than my right big toe. So I want to move into that a little bit, see if I can get the toes to be a little bit more balanced, because this is going to be affecting my gait mechanics. Inhale into that belly, feel the pelvis tilt forward. Man, this side feels a little stiffer in my back related to this hip. Exhale, draw that navel in as we scoop. And I'm feeling that more on this hip as well. So my left hip and my low back related to my left hip, a little tighter, stiffer than the right side, as well as that big toe. These are things I want to kind of notice when I'm doing my daily movement assessments, so that I can get a good sense for how does it feel on the right side compared to my left side. I want to notice the imbalances, because the more I notice those imbalances, the more I can work on them. Get a nice inhale. Feel that pelvis tilt forward. Try to work into that low back extension, feeling that belly open up. Exhale, navel to the spine, actively scooping. Move into that scoop more and more so that we start to feel that contraction in the glute. I'm going a little bit slower on this side because it feels tighter and stiffer. And I want to really try to get as much squeeze into that range of motion. Can I get a little bit more? Can I encourage a little bit more movement from this hip? And as I'm doing it, I'm feeling it loosening up a little bit. I'm getting a little bit more mobility, especially in that scoop. And I'm starting to feel some more contraction in that glute. Once we get 10 on that side, we're going to switch back to our first side. So again, keeping that big toe tucked. I'm now doing the exact same movement through the hips. Inhale into that belly, crocodile breath. Pelvis tilts forward. Exhale, drawing the navel up and in as we scoop. But we're going to add another aspect to this movement. So once we get that active scoop and you feel that stretch in the front, glute in the back, the knee that is down, that hand is now going to start to reach up to the ceiling. Inhale, let the shoulder soften as we fill up that belly, pelvis tilts forward. Exhale, scoop. Lock in that back glute first. Feel that stretch, feel the glute contract, then reach, trying to get a little higher reach through that hand. Inhale lets it soften. Exhale, scoop and reach. Now, as I'm reaching, I want to see if I can feel that pull from that front of that hip moving up into the abdominal viscera. Can you feel all of this lift with that reach? And I want to see if I can get this shoulder to elevate higher than the opposite shoulder. But I don't want to necessarily drop that opposite shoulder. I don't want to get into this side bend. So the opposite shoulder, for the most part, is staying in the same position, but I'm seeing if I can get higher with my right shoulder. Once we get 10 reps, we're going to switch and do the same thing on the other side. So again, make sure that big toe is tucked, locked and loaded. Inhale into that crocodile breath. Exhale, draw the navel in, feel that stretch in the front, contraction in the back, and then add in reach. Again, this side is tighter. I can feel that tension up into this front of this hip. And as I reach, oh, I really feel it a lot more than I did on the other side. And these tension differences, one side to the other, are part of the reason I'm feeling that low back stiffness. Again, each one trying to reach a little higher, feel that initial locked in stretch, front of the hip, contraction in the glute. But as we reach up, I want to feel it draw up through that abdominal viscera. Can you get that shoulder elevating a little higher on each one? Can you feel that glute contraction in the back as you reach? We're going to go ahead and switch back to the other side. As we're switching, let's go ahead and grab our staff. So getting back into that same position again, making sure that big toe is tucked underneath. We're going to bring the staff and we're going to set it on the top front of the shoulders. And I'm going to take my hands cross over to hold the staff, and I want to bring the elbows up high so that the staff is resting on both shoulders, on the very front top of both shoulders. And I want to make sure that that staff stays in that spot, touching both shoulders. The staff is kind of here to help us remain square through the shoulders. And now we're going to add in some rotation. So everything else, everything from the hip down is still the same. Inhale into crocodile breath. Exhale, draw navel in. As we scoop, maximize the stretch in the front, maximize the contraction in the glute. And then as we get that exhale contraction, we're now rotating the shoulders as much as we can towards the knee that is elevated in front. However, I want to get the eyes pinpointed on a spot on the wall out in front. So I don't want the head to turn with you. I want your head to stay forward. So nice inhale into crocodile breath. Exhale, scoop, lock in that bottom hip. Continue to exhale as we rotate, maintaining that position of the staff on both shoulders. Inhale as we bring it back. Exhale, actively scoop and rotate. And with each one, we're seeing if we can get a little bit more squeeze into that rotation. Now, something I want to pay attention to or watch out for is as I rotate through the shoulders, I don't want that knee to open up and rotate with me. If anything, I want that lower body to be engaged and almost counter-rotating, rotating in the opposite direction so that I can maximize that rotation in the spine. If my hips are moving with, I'm not going to get as much rotation stretch in the spine itself. So I want to feel those hips active as I rotate, inhale as we bring it back in. We should get some decent kind of core activation through that the obliques on that side that we're turning into. Squeeze into it, feel that contraction. Inhale as we come back. We'll go ahead and switch and do the same thing on the other side. So again, making sure that big toe is tucked in the back. Nice inhale into that crocodile breath. Exhale as we actively scoop, lock that back hip in. Eyes are fixed on a point on the wall in front as we continue to exhale and rotate. And this rotation is tighter. My left hip tighter. And as I rotate away from that hip, oh, I can feel it in my breath. It wants to take away my ability to talk a little bit. Little bit more stiffness and lack of mobility on this side. Again, it's hip now related to rotation in my spine. So you can imagine if one hip, my back and everything moves better, but the other hip, I have stiffness related to movement in my spine, kind of makes sense that my back would be a little sore and sensitive. So the more I can get some good balance of mobility within the hips and the spine together, things are going to move a little bit more efficiently and they should feel better. Once we get 10 reps, we're going to go ahead and set the staff back down to the floor. We're going to switch back to the other leg. And we're coming back to that same inhale, forward, exhale, scoop. Now we're going to apply a lunge to it. So I want to scoop and I want to actively maintain that scoop. And I'm lunging forward, trying to resist losing the scoop, even though it's impossible to maintain that scoop as I lunge. So I'm actively resisting it, knowing that it's going to go back as I go forward. I'm going to, as I come back up, I'm inhaling, exhaling, actively back into that scoop, and then trying to resist that scoop again. I want to feel that, draw that stretch out through the front of the thigh. Now, as I lunge forward or lean forward, I don't want my head and shoulders to go in front of my hips. I want to try to maintain that head, shoulders, and hips in alignment as we lunge forward. Once we get 10 reps, we'll go ahead and switch to the other side. Again, big toe is tucked. Inhale into that belly. Exhale, draw that navel up and in. Continue to exhale as we lunge forward. On this side, a lot stiffer, a little bit harder to get into that movement. So I'm going slow. I'm not being forceful. And I'm really feeling into where it feels tight and stiff, seeing if I can play in that juicy nature of that stretch. And as each one, it's like my body is giving me a little bit more range without giving me stress. It's not painful. I'm not trying to push. I'm not going to get the same level of mobility on this side as my right side had, but it's better than it was when I started, which is really that's going to be ideal. It's actually opening up a good amount in there. Still definitely tighter than it was on the other side. All right, now we're going to come down into our shin box. And we're going to get in, just getting into our folds. I want to do a good 10, maybe even 20 reps back and forth, working into our shin box folds, and then slowly expanding out more into like a pigeon fold. So at this point, I want to be more exploratory. We can fold straight forward through the shins. We can fold straight through the arrow of the knee, or we can fold back behind the knee. And really, it's where it feels good and juicy is where we want to fold. And we're going to work side to side. So I'm going to go through on one side. As I come back up, we're going to do a nice slow windshield wiper transition across to the other side so that we're nice exhale as we fold across. Inhale as we come up. Exhale as we start our transition. Inhale as we finish our transition. Nice exhale as we fold. As we're going back and forth, notice how does this feel on the right side compared to the left side. My right side shin box, I'm feeling that left hip a lot more than I did on the other side. And, I feel it in the low back on the right side as I fold. So it's tighter and stiffer on that side of the body. When I come to this left side, the position feels easier, the hip feels better, the fold is a little bit smoother. Although I still feel a little bit of that tightness at the bottom on that right side low back. So my right side low back and my left hip are kind of paired together in a tension pattern. And that's part of what I want to see if I can slowly improve upon, especially since I have another 5 hours on the basketball court today and tomorrow. Now, as we're going back and forth, once you got a good 3 or 5 reps, we're going to start to open up that back leg a little bit. By opening up that back leg, we're going to put the hips in just different mobility positions. So we might notice, there's a little bit of tension in that right hip that I did not notice earlier. So my left hip is definitely tighter in general overall compared to my right hip. But my right hip also has some tension patterns in it as well. And especially as I start to open it up, that is really where I feel it the most. Again, I want it to continue to feel good and juicy. I do not want to be moving into elevated levels of pain. And with each one, we're going to continue to open up that back leg a little bit more and a little bit more till we get closer and closer to what we would consider kind of that yoga class pigeon pose. Try to find that end range. How far back can you comfortably reach that leg? It might not be very far. I'm less concerned with how big that movement is and more concerned with making sure that it is not painful or stressful. So I don't want to force the position. I want to move into where I can control it pain-free. The idea here is if you are moving in pain, it has largely to do with how you have moved to get into pain. And if you want to move without pain, then you have to give your body an experience of movement that is not painful. And that can be challenging when we are dealing with chronic pain because everything hurts. So we have to find positions in which it doesn't hurt and ranges of motion in which don't elevate into our pain. And we have to focus in those areas, even if it feels slow and tedious. All right, we're going to finish with some glute activation. So We mobilize the hips. Now I want to work on a little bit of neurological stability in the glutes. So letting the legs go nice and flat, bringing one foot flat to the floor and moving that foot out to about 45 degrees from the midline of the body. We're going to start with that breath, crocodile breath, breathing into that abdominal wall. We're going to be focused on one side doing scoops, just the foot that is on the ground. The opposite leg is completely soft. The opposite hip is going to be relatively relaxed. Inhale, this pelvis is tilting up to the ceiling. Exhale, we're scooping, so we're feeling that tailbone lightly turn to the ceiling. But I'm not lifting the hip just yet. The first thing I want to feel is on that inhale, can you feel your spine getting lifted off the floor? Exhale, can you feel that belly button pressing the spine into the floor, that little bit of scoop? And with that little bit of scoop, can you feel a little bit more grounding in the foot? Can you feel that foot lightly pressed down? If you're able to feel that light engagement of that foot, then with each one, we're going to scoop up a little bit higher so that that hip starts to come off the ground. Inhale, we let it back to the floor, tilts forward, sway in the back. Exhale, navel to spine first, scoop, and start to feel that scoop, lifting that hip up a little bit higher to the ceiling. Want to start to feel some stretch in the front of the hip. Inhale, we're continuing to let it down. Exhale, scooping a little higher. If you're starting to feel that stretch, then I want to actively move into that stretch, squeezing into it. Can you start to feel some contraction in the glute? I want to feel that downward pressure through the foot. That foot should be downwardly pressing as we scoop up. Opposite leg, again, is completely soft and relaxed. The opposite hip should be resting on the floor. As this hip lifts up, we're literally actually rolling onto that opposite hip that's on the floor. The higher I'm able to get this hip up to the ceiling, scooping into it, getting that stretch, I want to start to feel as much contraction in that glute. I want to feel it start to burn. On the next one, as you get that hip as high as you can, we're going to keep it elevated, and we're going to come back to our breath with tilts. So we're going to let it tilt towards the ceiling and then exhale, scoop. But we're maintaining the height of the hip at this point. And with each exhale, feel that foot ground a little bit more as you squeeze into that scoop. Maximize the stretch on the front. See if you can maximize the contraction in the glute. Again, I want to start to feel that glute burn, and I want to feel as much of that scoop. Can you get that hip, that stretch of the hip elevating as high as you can with that maximum contraction in the glute? Once we've done 5 to 10 at the top, we're going to come back and finish with 5 all the way down and all the way back up, working that full range of motion. Inhale, let that hip drop. Exhale, scoop into it. Feel that load pressing down into the foot. Feel that stretch in the front and contraction in the rear. And once we've done 5 of those, we're going to let that leg go nice and straight. We're going to bend the other foot, other knee, placing that foot flat to the floor, moving it out to about 45 degrees from the midline of the body. And we're going to start over with that breath and pelvic tilt. Nice inhale into the crocodile breath. Exhale, feel that navel press the spine into the floor, and we're just lightly scooping, keeping the pelvis on the floor, but just lightly turning that tailbone up to the ceiling and feeling that foot lightly ground and press into the floor. And with each one, we're going to add a little bit more scoop to where we start to feel that hip lift a little bit off the floor. And with each one, we're going to scoop and feel it lift a little higher. As we lift a little higher, want to start to feel that stretch through the front of the thigh. And if you're able to feel that stretch, we're actively scooping into it, trying to get a little bit higher. I want to start to maximize that stretch and see if we can start to feel that contraction in the glute. Again, this one I want to really work to maximize the stretch, maximize the contraction. I want to start to feel that glute burn a little bit from it working. As you scoop, again, make sure you're feeling that downward pressure through the flat foot, grounded throughout the foot, pressure through the heel, ball of the foot, big toe all the way across to pinky toe. Again, I want to start to feel some good neurological burn in that glute. I want to feel that activation. As we get a good 10 reps, the next exhale, we're going to get to the top and we're going to stay at the top. Now we're just working that tilt at the top. Inhale, let that pelvis tilt up to the ceiling. Exhale, scoop, but don't let the hip drop or lower to the floor. By keeping it elevated and actively scooping, we should feel that burn a little bit more. Again, I want to maximize that contraction in the glute. Once we get 10, nice squeezes at the top, really feeling that glute engage. We're going to finish with 5 reps, full range. Inhale, let that hip all the way down to the floor. Exhale, scoop as you feel that lift, feel that stretch in the front, full contraction in the back. Once we get to 5, let the hip back down. We're going to bend both knees so both feet are nice and flat to the floor. We're going to come back to our big C shapes. Thumbs going in the low back, index fingers wrapped around the front. Hands are below the rib cage and above the hip bone in that nice meaty section of the abdominal wall. Squeezing the hands in to create some resistance for our inhale breath. And as you breathe in, feel that expansion of the abdominal wall like you're inflating a balloon. Exhale, full exhale. Get as much of that breath out as you draw that navel down, up, and in. Cinch the hands down to create more resistance for that inhale, and then inflate. With each one, see if you can blow that balloon up a little bit bigger. And as you inhale, kind of notice if you have extra tension building up in the shoulders, so that as you exhale, allow those shoulders to relax, soften. I want to maintain building tension just through the abdominal core, but I don't want to feel it moving up into the shoulders and into the neck. We can go ahead and let the hands drop off to the side, palms up, let the shoulders soften to the floor. Bring that breath. We're still breathing into our crocodile breath of our abdominal wall, but now I also want to bring it up into the ribs, feeling that expansion into the chest, out through the sides, and into the upper back. On that inhale, and then exhale. Any tension in the body, I want to let that tension melt into the floor. Take as long as you need here. Continue to breathe into tension. Exhale, letting that tension relax, soften, melt. And when you're ready, on your own time, take your time opening your eyes. When you come to a sit, make sure that you're not dizzy or lightheaded before you come to a stand.